go live. And now we're live. And I'm turning my phone on, do not disturb. Good morning. How are you today, other than me screwing up the links for the...
I'm great. I'm great. It's not a big deal. We'll get there.
Let's see what we've got going here. And we're just getting our technical stuff taken care of here. My phone on, do not disturb. There we go. So happy Fair Housing Month to you.
And right back at you.
Yes, it's a busy month here, isn't it?
My goodness, it has been really busy, and it's hard to believe it's already the 12th of the month. We're almost to the halfway mark of this month. It's insane.
Can you believe it? I mean, this is just crazy. And, you know, and the weird thing is like coming out of, you know, people, well, I think prematurely to a certain point, coming out of the pandemic situation, is kind of squirrely right now. They had a good piece in the, what was it? Wall Street Journal on what you can do and can't do when you're vaccinated. And, you know, the groups you can hang with and groups you shouldn't hang with, and you should still mask up. You know, indoor dining still not the best idea, even when you're vaccinated. I found it was very interesting in that regard. But as more and more of us get our little shots in the arm, we can come out and play. One thing I noticed was something, and I don't know, we're completely off topic on fair housing, but I saw something when I signed into the MLS that CR MLS was doing, you know, like you could put in for open houses. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Who made that decision?
Yeah, I got the email and was quite taken aback when I saw that. My hope is that it's just for when it's available that becomes activated. You know, because there's nothing that has changed in the industry guidance. There's nothing that says traditional open houses are okay. It may potentially be some type of workaround, and as long as you have it by appointment, it can still be done. But my hope is that they would not have used that terminology just yet to confuse everybody. Because I think, you know, a couple of people I talked to on Friday, they're like, wait, we can do this now? I'm like, no, we can't.
So did they have anything good on the Friday call?
Yeah, it's always good, but it's a lot of the same questions over and over. I mean, I hate to miss it in case there is something new, but there really hasn't been anything new. And it's been a lot of people kind of asking specific scenarios. So that takes up a little bit of time. And I think there are people that have just come late to the party. So they're asking questions that, you know, we had answers to 6 months ago. But there is some sense of, okay, we all know the world is opening up on June 15th. So what does that mean? And I think it's important to note, this wasn't said, but it was asked in the chat and not specifically addressed, but it's a question I had too, is, okay, so the governor says we're going to be reopening on June 15th. Does that mean the stay at home or safer at home order will be released, will be eliminated? I think that's the question that needs to be asked, because if that's the case, then I think we do more completely go back to normal. So because that's not the language that the news is using, my sense is, yes, more things will be open and we get rid of the tier system. I think that's the purpose of it, is to get rid of the tier system, but that may or may not change the essential businesses and industry guidance within each of those industries. So there's no definite answer on any of that, because it's basically just too soon to tell. I mean, that's 60 days away.
I'm seeing comments in the Facebook feed saying Gov Hutchinson's okay door dropping. Our office said it was approved that you can door knock. If an agent holds an open house, is that an ethics violation? So did you hear Gov say it's okay to door drop?
I would like to plead the fifth on this one, because There was a statement that I was completely shocked that was said
Hmm.
in relation to that. So the short answer is yes. I mean, he did say that. He said he didn't. He said we could quote him, but it's a little disappointing to me because the industry guidance hasn't changed. He's been very clear that the industry guidance hasn't changed. So what he's using is the interpretation from the CDC that the virus is not transferable through paper. So suddenly that becomes, okay, it's okay to drop. Now, I didn't hear anything about door knocking though. I don't think that's
I don't think door knocking would be wise. That's, again, would you want somebody on your porch? I don't want anybody on my porch.
No, I mean, I respect the fact that the mailman can bring us mail and, I get Amazon delivery every other day. So, I'm not disputing the fact that people should be able to receive their goods and information and it be left at your door. But I was just really surprised in that second that it was said that was so like boldly said.
Yeah.
It's like crushing my soul right now to even talk about it. It is.
Oh no, God, crush Lori's soul.
because we have been the disciples of until the industry guidance says otherwise, the answer is no. That's what we've been told for 9 months. Well, really since July when the updated guidance came out. So that's what we've been told for all those months. And now suddenly we're reinterpreting the exact same words. So it's kind of disappointing to me.
Yeah, that is disappointing because honestly, I think now that they know more than they knew then, because a lot of the stuff that we thought was right wasn't right. There are lots of misinformation a year ago, and the rules were set up kind of based on that lack of knowledge and or misinformation. They should be correcting it.
Yeah.
So the state says you can hand somebody a piece of paper, not Gov Hutchinson telling you can hand somebody a piece of paper.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I have listened to that man faithfully for nearly 2 decades. So, if he feels confident in it, I'm not going to argue that. My disappointment comes not from the fact that I don't want agents to do this, that I want agents to be able to do the work they're used to doing. Absolutely. I want people to be able to do that. But I just think our business is hard enough. You can have one sentence on a piece of paper and 5 attorneys will interpret it differently. So when you then have different people saying, well, I know it says this, but if we use this other logic too, even though it doesn't specifically say, then suddenly it's okay. That really concerns me because we already know agents don't read, they don't listen. They hear what they want to hear and they do what they want to do. And so now for the guidance we've been relying on for half a year to suddenly just be interpreted, differently, and open a floodgate where the entities that really are responsible for putting this information out there have not said that is concerning to me.
Yeah, it is. I totally agree. And who wants to be the person who puts something on somebody's porch and somebody say, let's say you put something on the porch of another realtor and that realtor said, hey, wait, the CDC says we can't, or not, the Cal OSHA says that we can't, hand people paper. I'm going to turn you in. Now what happens when they say, but
I don't know. And you and I were both on a meeting last week where somebody had made the statement, well, my broker said that you can drop as long as you drop the item 6 feet from the door. And I'm thinking, what the hell difference does that make? Now it's still trash. it's still something at my house, at my door. Like that seemed really lame to me.
It's like when you're at the restaurant in the indoor dining, and now that you have a glass of water in front of you, you can take your mask off and the germs magically disappear.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's getting to be about time that they're going to need to really take a look at things and say, let's revise our rules.
Right, and those are the conversations they're trying to have with, you know, whether it's OSHA, Department of Health. Like it's not one entity, it's like a conglomeration of different people, I think, from different entities that are working together. And so they didn't specifically say they've had conversations. They didn't specifically say they have meetings scheduled. They said, we know, we hear you, we're working on it, we're trying. And so, you know, I'm just like everybody else, looking forward to the day that the industry guidance is updated so that it can be more specific. And I think that's been our challenge is, you know, we have specific activities that we call certain things that are not spelled out in the guidance. And so it has made it very difficult from the beginning to have, you know, one set of marching orders for all of the different activities we do. And we've had to rely on some logical interpretations, but now when the language hasn't changed, but we have a different interpretation, it's just hard.
Well, and speaking of hard situations, let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, buyer love letters. It's Fair Housing Month. Let's talk about buyer love letters and why you shouldn't do them, even if people tell you to do them.
Well, I think that's the end of our session. No, not okay, so there's a lot to unpack with that, because first, where we need to start is it's not illegal to write the letter. It's not illegal. It's not a violation to write the letter. And I think that's something some people are starting to misunderstand. It's not suggested. At this point, the letter itself is not illegal. What is an issue is how the letter can be used. It causes a potential for discrimination, a real potential and a deep potential for discrimination. But, you know, I'm starting to hear people saying, you know, oh, they told me to write a letter. That's illegal. Well, it's not. So we have to be careful on that. It is in the fair, you know, if we look at the CAR Q&A on buyer interest letters, and I'll pop in the link in just a second here, they have a great Q&A. I read it last fall when it came out in the end of October. Hadn't read it for a while. So I was rereading it this morning, and it's really good. I mean, the questions that have come up in the last couple of months are addressed here. And so, you know, I'd like to take a little time on it. But one thing I think is really cool is in the middle of this Q&A, there's a sample exercise that I'd like to do, if we may.
Okay. Oh, let's.
Yes. So right in the middle of page 3 of this 10-page, it's called Unconscious or Implicit Bias Sample Exercise. So pretend you, as an agent or a buyer, are showing up to your appointment for a property that was just put on the market. As you drive up, you can't help but notice the Vote for XXXX sign in the front window or on the lawn. What do you think if the property has an American flag flying, or Palestinian or Mexican? When you're touring the property, you notice a Prius in the garage, or an electric vehicle charging station, or Land Rover or Ford 450. During this same tour, you notice a prayer scroll on the door jamb, or a picture of backpackers, or travel photos from throughout the world, or a law school diploma or high school diploma. What if you see a framed basketball jersey or framed hockey jersey? Maybe it's the end of the year and you observe a Christmas tree or nativity scene or a candle holder with multiple candles. Maybe on the mantle, you see a picture of someone wearing a police officer's or a firefighter's or military uniform, or a picture of a teenager with a swim team or football team or cheer squad or a wedding photo, or picture of someone in a turban or on a prayer rug. That's paragraph 1.
That's a busy house. I would have told them to declutter is what I would have.
Yeah, that was the first thought I had was, wow, there's too much personal stuff going on here. So then it asks, how many of you made assumptions with one or more of the examples above, good or bad, about the seller's race, color, religious beliefs, sex, gender, nationality, family status, or any of the other protected classes or categories? Be honest with yourself now. For example, did you picture the wedding photo with 2 people of the same skin color, of the same sex? When you saw the candle holder in your mind, did you think of Hanukkah or Kwanzaa? When you walked up to the property, were you insulted, pleased, self-righteous, or indignant by what you saw? Would you feel the same way about the nativity scene if it were August instead of December? Would you feel the same way about the flag if you knew the World Cup was going on? Would you feel the same about the seller's vehicle if the property were in San Francisco or Los Angeles or Bakersfield or Mammoth? These are very interesting questions. So if you, as an agent or prospective buyer, drew conclusions based on your perceptions of group characteristics, maybe you can see how the seller might do the same thing based on information in or pictures included with a buyer letter. Of course, any assumptions that could be made will not necessarily determine whose offer gets accepted, but discrimination is not always black and white, literally or figuratively. It can be subtle. So, and then it says, parting thought, California is diverse. It's a minority majority, or is it a majority minority state? Because of that, it is highly likely that persons of different legally protected classes or having different legally protected characteristics may be competing against one another or contracting with one another. Something to think about, be aware, and take care. I think that's pretty brilliant that they included this right in the middle of the Q&A to make us think. What do you think? What did you think of or feel as I was reading that?
I had to laugh about the Prius, being an ex-Prius owner.
I knew you would.
But the funny thing is, there were people that I knew that gave me crap because of the car that I drove. The only thing that they were saying is, where's your coexist bumper sticker? Isn't that, something that comes from the dealer with the car, that kind of stuff. And, and it's kind of funny. And I know we've had conversations about pickup trucks, when you have a neighborhood that's full of pickup trucks, and it's kind of funny because when you think about the California protected classes, what's the last one? Any arbitrary group.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds kind of odd, but a lot of the things that were mentioned in there can be qualified as an arbitrary group.
Right.
And going through that extremely busy house, that does help explain why you tell your clients to take down personal pictures. I never even really thought about the framed college degrees, because I know when I'm showing a house, what do I do? Oh, look, they got, kids that went to the same school that my kids did. Oh, look, this person went to this college. Wow, a law degree. I wonder what they practice. This is what's going on in my head.
Yeah.
So what's going on in my buyers' heads? You'd hate to think that somebody might miss out on a good property just because they don't like the fact that the person, drives a pickup truck or a Prius, which is crazy, but there's people that think like that, and I'm not, I'm doing this generally, not in the super hot market that you take anything that has a roof and walls, but, people judge things oddly. And, it's, my question is, if you don't write a appropriate letter, which we'll talk about that more in a minute, and your client said, because I had this happen last year, my client said, I have to write a letter. And I'm like, no, you don't. She's like, no, I have to write a letter. My friends told me I have to write a letter. It's the only way I'm going to get this property is if I write a letter. And I'm like, no, that's not the only way you're going to get this property. We write a good offer. We show them you're a solid buyer and you're going to close escrow on time and not make their life miserable. That will get you the house. No, 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 no. I'm writing the letter. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ almighty. So she sends me the letter. I didn't say, I told her don't do it, but she did it anyhow. She sent me the letter. She said, you be sure that the seller gets that. Now what do? My client's directing me to send this letter with a picture of the family and explaining her situation and all of this stuff. And I'm like, what do I do? And what could come back to me for submitting that?
Yeah, so I love this Q&A because there's a lot of language that I highlighted here. Hold on, let me find that one. Because it doesn't address it specifically like that, but partially. It's a different scenario, but brokers have a common law fiduciary duty, period. There is more to that sentence, but it's really specific about the sellers. And so you do have the fiduciary duty to follow your client's instruction unless it is going to include you in the illegal discrimination. So at that point, as the buyer's agent, you need to be able to counsel your buyer on why this is not a good idea, why this is exposing them and potentially exposing them to discrimination, but also the fact that you have to find a little more delicate way to say, I don't want to be implicated in a potential discriminatory case. But you have to let them know it's your responsibility to advise them appropriately. And it is okay if they want to write a letter, but we need to look at what the letter can say. And there is a question on there. In fact, there's 3 pages of example language that are probably okay, as it says on the Q&A, that are probably okay. And it's all home specific. It's not client specific. So I'm trying to find that question where it does talk about the buyer wanting to write the letter. Let's see. It mostly focuses on if the seller is given instruction not to receive the letters. You'd have to advise them to write the letter in such a way not to address any protected category. And yeah, pretty much that's it.
And we'll put a link for the Q&A in the chat when this is over, because we have people asking for it. So
yeah, I'll do that in a second. So it says, even though a buyer letter in most cases is unlikely to give rise to a direct claim for violation of fair housing laws, submitting a buyer letter may inadvertently drag a buyer into an unwanted claim regarding the property. So, there is 16 questions on this. And then, like I said, there are 3 pages, 9 examples of language that you can use. So I have the links ready. I'll pop them in a sec because I have to open Facebook and do all that too. So, the Q&A mostly addresses from the listing side though, as a listing agent, how do you advise your seller? And, you need to have that conversation. And if you're a broker, it recommends having a policy against inviting such letters or accepting them if presented. And it talks about, okay, so if you have a policy, or even if you don't, if you have instruction from the seller to not accept the letters, be sure you have that in writing. So then when you do have a buyer's agent that says, no, you have to show them this, you can show them, no, my seller has acknowledged they do not want to see it, that they will ask me to return any offer that includes it where I can't just remove it. So if you have the letter as a separate attachment to an email, the agent can remove it. If it's attached and you can't show them the letter, then you're not supposed to send the offer. You're not supposed to show the offer to your seller. you have to tell them the offer exists, but that per their instruction to not see the letter, you had to reject the entire thing because it was attached to the offer. So you could make it a policy that even if it's a separate attachment, you know, you could send it back simply for the fact that you don't want to have to open that attachment to confirm and then detach it like that. I think that gets a little tricky.
And also too, from the agent standpoint, you know, of course, we have our implicit bias, and just opening the letter or seeing it's in there, and you can say, oh, okay, you can't unsee what you've seen.
Right.
So that puts you as an agent in a bad spot, because you know, you don't have to pass it to the seller, but you already know what you're dealing with, you
Right.
know. And so your implicit bias, whatever it is, you know, oh look, they have a dog like mine, or oh, isn't that cute, they have a baby, or oh my gosh, she's pregnant, or oh, you know, wouldn't it be cool if a gay couple bought this house, you know. No matter what your implicit bias is, you don't know how that's going to affect you in your counseling of your seller.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, putting it in the MLS that do not send one, your offer will not be looked at or whatever. Even then, you know, if they send it, you're just like, it's like Pandora's box. You can't unsee what you've seen. So I think we really just need to get people in
Right.
the habit of, you know, not sending them, and maybe, you know, putting, you know, in an email the things that your client loves about the house, but not, you know, from your client. You know, and I did that recently, where I wrote a letter, or I had the clients write a letter because they saw the house. They were driving by it. The seller was out front. You know, they kind of stopped to look. The seller invited them in to come see the house without my knowledge or the other person's knowledge. They had a wonderful conversation, and my client wrote a letter saying, hi, you know, I'm the person you met on Saturday. You know, I love your property. We would love to be able to fix up that back porch like you were talking about, how you wanted it, you know, wanted to see it done. Please consider our offer. Now, nothing about anybody. They already met. There's nothing to do about that. And our offer got rejected. So I guess that proved that didn't help.
Right. Right. Well, and there is an interesting question on here. It says, is a buyer in violation of fair housing laws by submitting a letter accompanying an offer? No, but it may not be advisable for other reasons. The decision-making process regarding to whom to sell a property belongs to the seller, not the buyer. And a buyer letter may be written in such a way to not address any protected category. But buyer letters might include information suggesting that the buyer belongs to or associates with a protected class or characteristic. If that were the case, it could raise questions as to whether the seller based their decision explicitly or implicitly on this information, and even whether the buyer intended to use protected categories to influence the seller's decision. Accordingly, even though a buyer letter in most cases is unlikely to give rise to a direct claim for violation of fair housing laws, submitting a buyer letter may inadvertently drag a buyer into an unwanted claim regarding the property. So, you know, there is one question on here too. Let me find it. Okay, I really like this question. It says, even if one were not familiar with all 22 protected classes, most people know discrimination can be unlawful. But is it wrong to accept an offer because a seller likes one buyer better than another, or thinks that one buyer is more deserving than another? And the answer is possibly. If another prospective buyer is denied an equal opportunity to purchase because one of the categories above. So, you know, we may even think that, well, if we select somebody that's in a protected class, then we did the right thing. We didn't violate the law, and we're benefiting that person that's in that protected class. Well, the reality is, if you're choosing because of that reason, then you're discriminating against someone else.
And technically, everybody's part of a protected class.
Absolutely. We may not think it, but we all are.
Yeah, we really all are. So, At this
Or
point,
more, one or more classes.
exactly. And Pam Pettigo brings up a good point. Remind people that there are more attorneys in California than realtors, which is hard to believe. But, that's the problem. And, maybe on a nationwide basis, when if your state doesn't have as many protected classes as California, you still have the federal classes to deal with, and that still covers a lot of people. Age is something that can go both ways. We always think of being discriminated against on age, being older, such as myself. But it can swing both ways. Oh, I want to sell to an older person who's gonna, make this their home till they go, versus, but even if the neighborhood, doesn't really suit a family, a young couple or whatever, whose decision is that?
Yeah.
It's not the seller's decision. And I think it's interesting. I like the fact that we are talking about, as a buyer, representing a buyer, do you want to even go down this road and put yourself in a situation that if the buyer chooses to either accept you or not accept your offer based on what it was you supplied them? Yeah, I think you could probably be implicated in that, according to what you're reading. And we just got to get people out of the habit of doing this. And especially in California, because I don't want to sell a house to Lori because Lori has red hair. Oh, I don't want to sell a house to Lisa because she dyes hers. I mean, it's arbitrary groups. Lisa once drove a Prius. Oh my God, I don't want to sell her a house. Yeah, I mean, there's crazy bias. And something Lori and I discussed last week was, any particular group of people, what about political views? And it was covered in that question. If you don't like somebody based on, let's say somebody has a webcam or a Ring doorbell that can see the cars that are parked in front of the house, and your buyer's car has a sticker on it. And those stickers can be one of many stickers that are floating around out there. And your buyer says, I saw the sticker on that person's car, and there's no way in hell I'm selling to somebody who has that sticker on their car. I mean, anything. And we have somebody standing in solidarity with redheads named Lori. That would be Lori Benner.
Thank you.
Okay, we cannot discriminate against redheads. Absolutely not. I love me a redhead or two. I got a redheaded kid. I got a redheaded business partner. Redheads. I wish I was a redhead.
Redheads unite.
But, I mean, we just really got to get our buyers educated. We also have to get our coworkers and maybe some office managers educated, because I think you've probably seen, like I've seen, there's people out there still to this day training people to ask for love letters, write that love letter. That's the way your client's going to get a house. I mean, I see it all the time in these Yahoo groups. I mean, I shouldn't say Yahoo, the wacky other real estate groups where they just talk madness. And for two people will say, don't write the letters, it's fair, it could be a fair housing violation. And one person's going to say, no, write the letter. You need to do this. Oh, and we got a statement here. These letters are often suggested on HGTV shows like Property Brothers. Oh. This is not good. No wonder that's where these people get these ideas.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like there's an uptick in the people that want to do the letters in the last year, and it can't be because of the conversation of you shouldn't do them. I felt that there was some other power suggesting it, but I couldn't put my fingers on it because I don't watch that show.
Yeah.
Or that channel.
Well, maybe that's horrible news.
Oh, and there's actually, I'll try to find the link. I'm this page, the Facebook page keeps crashing on me, so I'm still trying to put the links in. But there was also a video played on the Friday meeting from a news segment up in the Bay Area where CAR President Dave Walsh is on there talking about the buyer interest letters too. So I'll look for that link and pop it in as well. It's a good, 2-3 minute segment about this topic. So
yeah, and I would love if anybody has ever heard of somebody, knowledge of someone getting popped for this violation. Most of us aren't going to hear these things, are going to stay, within the upper echelons of large brokerages and stuff like that. It's not something that anybody's really going to be walking around and talking about. But we did hear of somebody not writing a love letter, but they thought they were doing the right thing, and they really weren't doing the right thing, and they got popped, and it was a 5-digit fine. And the broker said, I didn't say this, agent, you did, you pay it. So, that's something we need to be talking about to a certain extent. Is I don't think they mess around. I think, this is some crazy crap going on out there. And somebody's going to be the test case. Somebody's going to be the test case. And it's going to end up like the squatting renters that finally got thrown out of the house, and now everybody's freaking out about, oh my God, all the renters are squatting, because of one thing on the news that wasn't related to the pandemic. But it's almost would be good if somebody did get popped and we all heard about it. Oh, Pam brought up a good thing. Remember when we used to present in person at the dining room table? Yeah, back in the day. And, maybe then we didn't come so much with a letter, but we came with a story about our clients and breaking all kinds of fair housing rules. They're a lovely family, and they're having their 3rd baby, and the yard's perfect for their dog. I mean, I wonder if dogs could be arbitrary groups too.
Oh, somebody on the Friday meeting said, I think that's where I heard it. I might have read it somewhere else though, that they received a letter from the dog, from the prospective buyer's dog, instead of from the family. And, got a good laugh, but it's like, okay, well, now we're just getting a little too creative.
Well, and it's funny, Pam mentioned in the comments that she had a listing in Corona, and I'm trying to find the comment right now because it was interesting, where she was getting, 12 offers. Many came with videos, letters, pictures, family trees. And the video thing's kind of freaky, I mean, that's showing dedication, but I wouldn't send it to my clients because I wouldn't want to be, definitely implicit in doing something like that. But
yeah. Oh, and a second ago, I just saw the statement I wanted to read, but I'm trying to multitask. Okay, here we go.
we're making Lori work for her salary here of.
I know. Let's see. So it's under question 7. So when you go to the link, question 7 asks, what actions should a broker take to address buyer interest letters? And there's 2 paragraphs, but the statement I want to read is right in the middle. It says, agents can be liable for following a principal's instruction to illegally discriminate. It is better that they are made aware of high risk conduct. So we kind of talked about that earlier, and I couldn't find the exact statement.
Well, I think when you're taking a listing, it's probably good to mention to your clients, like you do, about put away your prescription drugs, don't leave money sitting on the counter. And here's another thing. Oh, we have the Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory. Let's go over this. And let's talk about the different things. Oh, look, there's a comment here about buyer love letters to protect you, Mr. or Mrs. or Miss or whomever seller. Best idea is we don't accept them. We put that in the MLS that we don't accept them. Would you like, I will add this into the listing contract under additional information that seller instructs listing agents that they do not want to be presented with any letters or videos or any other communications from potential buyers. Boom, you got it in your listing contract. And I don't know about everybody else, but one thing that I always do is I have certain things that I tell my clients when we're listing the house. I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell you this now, and you're probably not going to remember it, but it's going to come up later in the transaction. Usually I talk to them about repairs in this way, saying, It's not a big deal now, but remember, it gets very contentious during repair negotiations. Now, I'm going to remind you that I told you this during the listing. You can do the same thing with when the offers come in. You are not going to be presented with anything because you've given me instructions not to be presented with those. If we receive any offers, we're going to have to reject them until they submit it without that letter, because people don't follow the rules, which we know in this business, people don't follow the rules. So that way, it's not like foreign territory. You just have to give the gentle reminder, because people don't always remember, and just say, okay, the offers are coming in. We've got one that included one of those letters. I'm doing this for your protection. We're going to tell them, resubmit it without the letter. I didn't even open it because I don't want to see the letter. And, let them know that you're doing it on their behalf to protect them. You're also protecting yourself, but to protect your seller. And just having the conversations, taking the time and actually like going over a contract, kind of a novel idea for many.
And
you know,
remember to be consistent. If the policy is, or if the seller's instruction is not to see any letters, don't send them some, don't let them review some and not others. That could also be deemed discriminatory if they're making decisions based on something that they weren't applying a process consistently. Now you could have a claim of discrimination because you didn't treat all prospective buyers the same.
mm-hmm. Now, Pam has a question. Am I in violation by not sending it? It works both ways.
By not sending it? So if the buyer...
I'm assuming, Pam, you mean the letters and not flowers, because you mentioned flowers. Flowers could be a nice touch, but because that came up. Somebody had put a question in the Deliberately Fair Housing chat, because I posted this talk there as well. And they said, what do you tell your buyer who demands and presents you with it? So now it's in your possession that you have to deliver a letter to a seller, as you have a duty to deliver all written communications from the other party.
Well, you could lean to, that one's a fine line, because by law, you have to follow your client's instruction, but you may have a company policy that says you're not allowed to present those. So you need to have a conversation with that buyer. There is also that form, acting against the advice of a broker. You could provide that to the buyer and make them sign it and say, you know what, I'm letting you know, I do not plan on being a party to any discrimination. I'm very concerned that this could be an issue, because maybe at that point you've read the letter, maybe you haven't. I mean, that might be the deciding factor. If you have the letter and you can see it's, we love the garden, we love the color of the house, it's all about the house, then maybe it's not an issue. But if it has too many elements, or a single element of protected class characteristics, then you might be setting yourself up for an issue. So just like you would discuss that with your seller doing the listing presentation, maybe that's something we just start doing with our buyers during our initial consultation. Hey, we know this is a popular practice, but here's why it's an issue. And, I'm not going to be a party to illegal discrimination. In fact, my company has a policy that we shouldn't be passing these along. There may be a time where you just have to let them know you can't represent them. I mean, if you feel that that's what's necessary, if they're going to be pushy, and the letter has discrimination in it. There is one question in here, but again, it's geared towards the seller, and it talks about how, I don't remember which question it was, but it talks about how, you may just have to walk away from something because you suspect, or that they are going to make a decision based on a discriminatory factor. So on a seller, it's probably easier to figure out how to navigate that. With a buyer, I'm sure it will be trickier.
Yeah, because then you also get put in the position, like if you do get a letter that says nothing about who the buyers are at all, but it is, we love your home, we love the garden, we can't wait to call it ours or mine, or well, even right there, it could get you into trouble. It's, Yvonne put something in the comments earlier that made, perfect sense. Submit your offer, your proof of funds, and your lender pre-approval letter. That's all I want to see. And if we just made that the standard, personally, I wish we could do blind contracts, because we know that there's even discrimination against names. Assumptions are made. Assumptions can be made about all kinds of things, not only the nationality of the potential buyers, but also who's buying this house. You see two names perceived of the same sex, and people can, I don't know about that one, and it's like, well, how do you know it's not a mother and a daughter? How do you know it's not two brothers? How do you not know all kinds of things? And I even saw that happen on a transaction that I had last year. After the offer was submitted and everybody was cool and we opened escrow, the sellers made an assumption about the buyers. And there was just like, I'm really kind of unhappy that we're selling the house to somebody who's this spoiled. And it's like, because they thought that, mom and dad are buying the house for the son, because they bought a big house for cash and it was a lot of money that somebody, most people wouldn't do that. Well, they didn't know that the son had worked out repayment terms to both of the parents and was, going to pay them back for the home. They were loaning him the money, but the offer was written as an all cash deal. And it kind of messed with the sellers' heads. And it's like, number one, it's none of your business. And number two, no, it's all good. Don't worry about it. But people discriminate for all kinds of reasons, and I just saw something here. Let's see. If you take an all cash offer, are you discriminating against people that need to take out a loan?
No, that's not a protected class.
And I think that source of income gets confused with that. I think the only way that you could possibly get in trouble, and this is something that I would like to do a whole session on too, is what about somebody using a VA loan with zero down? We don't take those. We don't even submit a VA loan. Well, let's see. Veterans and active military are a protected class. They're just trying to use their benefits, and they're a veteran because they're using a VA loan. I'm waiting for that one. That's going to be the interesting one to see what happens with that.
Yeah, no, it is. I found this specific question that talks about, the buyer wanting to submit the letter. So it says, if it's question 14, if the seller has not expressed any instruction on the acceptability of such letters, and the buyer insists on including such a letter, then the buyer's agent may suggest to the buyer to focus on objective criteria and even subjective matters such as taste, flattery, and style, while striving to avoid language in the letter that may directly or indirectly indicate belonging to a protected class or having protected characteristics. So that's what we were saying. In such a case, it is good practice to have the buyer's letter be reviewed by the broker, office manager, or even legal counsel first. If the seller is given written instructions to the seller's broker not to submit offers that are accompanied by such letters, and that direction is made publicly available, such as through the MLS, then buyers making offers on that property should be instructed not to include such a letter, as doing so will decrease rather than increase the chance of the offer being accepted, because the offer itself may not be presented to the seller under the circumstances. So pretty much the advice, we gave was valid, that, as a buyer's agent, you still need to counsel your buyer. Ultimately, if they insist, review it, send it over. But if it is known that the seller has given instructions not to review it, the buyer needs to know that.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. One thing that was interesting is John Valdez put in the comments, Glide offers let you blur out the buyer's names.
Hmm, I didn't know
Hmm.
that.
But then again, you still have proof of funds, so you would have to block their names out there, which gets, that's where it gets kind of touchy, because how do you know whose bank account you're looking at?
Yeah, see, and I was on a session a couple months ago where this came up, and people in the chat were commenting, well, we should just get to a point where we block out the names. There's a whole other group, a whole other set of circumstances that need to be considered in order for that to work. And that was one of the points that was brought up, is how do you know the proof of funds is really for that person? How do you know the pre-qual letter is really for that person? And do you have a valid contract if there's no names on it? So, those are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And then, a step further, okay, but what if the seller was home? What if the seller has a Ring doorbell? What if the seller invited the buyer in and there were no agents present? So we're not going to eliminate everything, because this isn't just, like I'm anonymously going on Amazon and I'm buying an item and no one knows who I am, and they have my credit card, but it's all encrypted, so they don't really know anything about me. It's not that. So there are a lot of things that are being discussed, and who knows where it'll go. Maybe through technology, we will get to a space where all of this can happen magically through, the universe, and these issues don't come up, but we're not quite there yet.
So in the meantime, until we have all of that wonderful stuff, we just have to be careful. And, I think it's just smart to have the conversations with your buyer and have conversations with your seller, about best practices, including, protecting them from any possible fair housing violations, along with everything else you should be discussing with them too, like, wire fraud, safety, you should be having these conversations. And, I'm sure everybody in this group is, because, well, we're the nerdy bunch. And so we do these things. But, if we can just get the word out, because I think that that's the biggest problem, especially when we've got like HGTV advocating it. Maybe somebody should be having a little discussion with their production company, or saying, hey, you guys want to get popped for a fair housing violation? Let's watch it on live TV. That could be fun.
That could be fun.
Ooh, maybe I better start watching. But it's reality out there, and perception is reality. There was an interesting report. I'm still trying to get a hold of the person at NAR that did the report, of snapshot of race and home ownership that NAR did. And it's on their website. And one of the things was a breakdown of, do you feel you were discriminated upon? And, a lot of people said yes. And then they said, okay, were you actually discriminated upon? And the number actually was very low, but the did you feel you were was very high. And, out of the people that felt that they were discriminated. So that's right there, kind of perception is reality. Even if you didn't, even in your heart, if you knew you did all the right things, but somebody felt that way, it's going to be up to you to be able to defend yourself for your actions. And by having these protocols in place, and the office managers and the broker of records out there really should be having these conversations about what is our policy. We got a lot of things we got to be talking about policies, and fair housing is definitely one of them, because I don't think anybody wants to play, let's find out how big the fine's going to be. And, I don't know what the process is. I don't know if you get an opportunity to have your case heard. I don't know whether they just slap you upside the head and say, send us money because you were bad. I personally don't know. I don't know if you know, Lori, what the
Yeah, I mean, the DFEH, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, they will do an investigation. So if a claim is brought to them, they will do an investigation, and then they will.
My gardeners just showed up.
And then they will make a decision on the whether they believe discrimination occurred, and what fine or penalty or education, or I guess discipline, if you will, is going to be applied to that instance.
And there was one other comment in the chat that was really interesting. And Carla put in here, what should happen when selling agent sneaks into home and leaves love letter on seller's kitchen table? She was a smooth operator. She said it was a thank you letter for allowing to show and tour the home, and then went into how her buyer loved the house and can see themselves living there and having their granddaughter's graduation party in their beautiful backyard. Seller came home to it. She called our listing agent about it. That's pretty ballsy.
That is, I mean, that is a whole lot of violations. Unauthorized access to the property. It could be abuse of the lockbox. I mean, and that hasn't even gotten to the letter itself. That's just shady.
And that's a sad thing because, in this industry, we're always encouraged to be innovative, think outside the box, do what everybody else isn't doing. Well, there might be a reason why people are doing certain things.
Yeah.
And that could very well be one of them, I mean, and there's so much just goofy stuff. Like, we mentioned the HGTV thing, and there's so many sources of just information. Everybody is an expert right now as we sit here on our little talk here saying, listen to us, we know what we're talking about. But there's people out here, and Lori, you can attest to this as much as anybody because we've talked about it. There's so many people out there that aren't actively in the business coaching people on how to do this business. And I'm sure there's a lot of people giving ideas like that. Telling you to write the letters because these people aren't really, they're looking to make a buck off of somebody because they're not actually out there working. At least
I could see that happening. I'm just trying to rationalize how that agent in her right mind could think that was a good idea. Whether she came up with herself or someone else, like, I will sneak into the house and leave this letter. That's just shady.
Yeah. Or coming in with one beforehand or whatever, and especially sneaking into a house right now. You can't sneak into a house, unless you try to do it the same day as the peak. But
oh yeah, there's that too.
You only got that window of time.
Oh my gosh.
And Pam put something interesting in here saying years ago there was a landmark discrimination case based on the remark made by seller directly to the buyer. Agent was not even there. It was awful.
Wow.
And Pam also says that she can fix me up with getting some red hair.
Oh, okay.
Her and Gary and Olivia all say that they can hook me up with some red hair.
Yes, I recently learned that Gary had red hair when he was younger.
Well, I guess they know how to do that then. So I can join that group of redheads that, we don't want to discriminate against the redheads.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
But this has been an interesting talk this morning. And I think really the one thing, again, we always say we're preaching to the choir here. The choir's singing in the church. We all know the words. We need to get out there and start singing to people that don't know the songs. Whether it be, following the proper protocol for, COVID until Cal OSHA changes it. Whether it's fair housing, whether it's just proper business practices, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. We need to be talking to others besides ourselves. And if you're in an office where this hasn't come up in an office meeting, maybe talk to your office manager. How come we're not talking about, love letters? And is there a protocol for our office? I would like to see it, and sometimes just get out there and stir the pot a little bit. And this is how we make things happen. You got to go out there and talk about it. If your office manager hasn't had a meeting about the Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory, this is the perfect time to make that, something to discuss on a Tuesday morning office meeting, because it's Fair Housing Month. And we, speaking of Fair Housing Month, we've got some things coming up next week. Now, does the Monday event at Orange County Realtors conflict with Monday morning coffee and compliance next week?
I think it's at 10 a.m.
Okay, so we're gonna have to cut it short next week.
Yeah, we'll have to, is it at 10? Shoot, I should know this. Yeah, it's at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Damn, it's also at the same time as Standard Forms Committee, Forum on Forms. Dang. So, yeah, so we'll have to jump off of here probably like 8:45 because or maybe Lisa can stay on, but I'm moderating that, so I'll have to jump off and get onto there a few minutes early. But you know, I would highly encourage everyone to click through those links, read that Q&A in depth. It's long, but you know, it's a topic that we have been talking about, but to really read the questions the way they're posed, the answers are amazing. I mean, they really simplify it and make you think. And so the Q&A itself would be a great office meeting. You could absolutely just use that as your office meeting. But, you know, I would encourage everyone to read it, to take some implicit bias training, because, you know, as we mentioned previously, we all have things that we like and dislike, and we don't always recognize it. And so if we're using any of those biases to make decisions, it could be detrimental to the transaction or to our careers. So
And for next week for Fair Housing Week at Orange County Realtors, and this applies if you're not a member of Orange County Realtors, you can still sign up for this stuff. And we'll put the link in the Facebook chat. There's going to be implicit bias training on Thursday, and it is so good. It is so good. I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you have not taken the CAR implicit bias training as a CAR director or CAR leadership, definitely sign up for Thursday. It's really good because it makes you walk through understanding implicit bias. So it makes you feel it. And, you know, Lori used the example that he uses of broccoli. What do you think of broccoli? Do you like it? Do you hate
I
it?
happen to like it, but others don't.
I really like mine, you know, roasted. But some people hate broccoli, and they have an aversion to broccoli, and it kind of bugs them how broccoli makes them feel. They don't like the smell or whatever. You have a bias towards broccoli. And this makes you understand that you have these feelings about people, and you have these feelings about things. And it's really one of the best events I think I've ever attended for self-awareness. And I'm really short in the self-awareness department, so I need all the help I can get. And it was really super good. So we'll have the link for that. And then Friday, Farrah Wilder, the CAR Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, is going to be talking more about buyer love letters and different fair housing updates. And our buddy Susie put in a really good sentence in the chat. Fair housing violation is a federal crime, not the Department of Real Estate. And California's got a whole bunch of extra categories, so you wouldn't be a DRE violation, be a California state violation. Get to meet the new California DA. And that's something I don't want to do unless it's at a cocktail party, which I still think I have to wait a while for that. But I hope everybody learned something good today, and really come join us next week. We're gonna, you know, actually, it is the 1-year anniversary of this group yesterday, but this is a very, very busy month. And the 26th, which would normally be our Zoom, everybody hop on party, we're going to have to be dark that week because we're going to be in California Association of Realtors directors meetings, business meetings, and we have meetings that we can't miss at that time. So we're not going to be doing a meeting on the last Monday of the month. I believe it's 26th. So I think we'll do Zoom party next week. We'll just have to kind of keep it a little short, or we'll just all have to wave bye to Lori. But we'll have maybe a little anniversary party in Zoom. How's that sound?
Sure. Sounds good. Sounds good.
And then we take a week off while we go
sit in homeownership housing committees, for me at least.
I'm on that committee too. I haven't added it to my calendar yet. But I
So-
also have next Monday at 2 p.m. is the RPA, the 2021 RPA preview. So that's from 2 to 5. So even if you're not a CAR director, you could attend that to see the preview. You know, they have the forum on forms in the morning, but then they have this preview session in the afternoon. I'm assuming the meeting is very similar, not the same. So I was bummed I'll miss the morning one, but I have the other one on my afternoon calendar.
And that is a reminder to everybody who is in the group, you don't have to be a director to attend the business meetings. You just need to be a CAR member. And then, you know, you can go onto the CAR site for business meetings, the spring meetings, and see if there's something that interests you, especially if you're thinking about getting involved. If you want to get more involved at a state level, you know, especially now that we're on Zoom, you can, you know, see what happens. You know, there's certain meetings you can't go to. Some are closed, some are invitation only, but a lot of them are open. And, you know, on the 26th, come join us in home ownership housing. Come listen to all of the crazy stuff we're going to listen to. All righty. Well, I think that should wrap it up for today. But thank you, everybody. It was a wonderful conversation this morning. I feel that we had some good information. Tell your friends to check out our replay. We're going to be here on Facebook Live. You can always come back to this. And also, we do have a YouTube channel. And we're slowly adding all of our Monday morning coffee and compliance talks to the Nerdy Real Estate Resources YouTube channel. And I guess that's about it. So anything you want to say, Lori, before we go?
No, that's it. Thanks again for listening and all of the comments and feedback, and just spread the word about this information. So important.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll see y'all later. Have a good week. Go out, sell a house.
Bye.